So I wanted to talk a little bit about US marijuana stocks, more specifically the political side of things, and I do think that I have some very good points to make, so stick around, you might learn something relevant. Now, this will take a while to explain, by the way, so give me a chance here, but in the United States we currently have two political parties. We have the Republicans and we have the Democrats. Now, the Republicans, or the political right, is currently in control of everything, while the Democrats are not. So we have a Republican president in the form of Trump, and there's a Republican majority in Congress, so that's that. So the reason why this is relevant, by the way, is that Republicans currently, if you are a Republican currently, then you feel pretty good about the country's future and just the general state of things. You might not necessarily like Trump, but you feel better the fact that there's a Republican majority and the fact that the people who are running the country have a similar mindset to you, more or less a similar ideology. So you feel fairly good about everything, but at the same time, Republicans are much less likely to support legalization of marijuana. So if you are a Republican, then you are much less likely to invest into marijuana because most people don't invest in stuff that they don't believe in. So in terms of investing into marijuana stocks, the Republicans less likely to do so. Now the Democrats, or the political left, they are generally in support for marijuana legalization and they are more likely to invest into it, but they aren't as confident about the country's future and the economy as a whole. I'm just talking about in general. And whenever it's looking specifically at marijuana stocks, a lot of the time the big factor that comes into everything is Trump. People look at marijuana stocks and specifically their first question is, what if Trump does something? What if Trump starts going after marijuana stocks? And that ends up putting a very big uncertainty around US marijuana stocks, and that leads to a lot of risk. And I think that that risk is being overestimated. Now let me explain why. So the media has been painting Trump very negatively for about a year now, and a lot of people on the political left just view Trump as a complete joke, as somebody who completely irrational, just a loose cannon that might do anything at any moment, and that's not really true. So, by the way, if you don't understand Trump whatsoever, read his book. I mean, The Art of the Deal, which is his book, you can get the PDF online for free, and it's actually a pretty good book. And in addition to that, it gives you a fairly good understanding of how Trump thinks and some of his ideologies and methodologies and just how he operates in his life. And this is important because if you are going to be investing into stocks, you do need to have a fairly good understanding of both of the political sides because politics is quite important in the stock market. So read his book, you'll get a better understanding of the guy, but here's the thing. He's not an irrational guy. He is not going to, I don't think he's going to go after marijuana stocks, uh, partially because there would be a ton of opposition if he did so, and it would be a big waste of time without any, it wouldn't really accomplish anything. And the more important part is that it would infringe on states' rights. So states' rights is a principle that I think a lot of Republicans and Democrats, they hold it as a fairly valuable principle to follow. And if Trump were to break that principle and go after states' rights, that would be problematic, and I think that he would get a lot of opposition for that. And I think that he's the type of guy who actually believes in states' rights and go against would not go against them even if the states were doing something that he disagreed with. So I don't think that he's going to be going after marijuana anytime soon. He might say something, but I highly doubt that he would go after any of it. Now, this matters because the Trump factor is currently being quite heavily overestimated, in my opinion, in terms of the risk that he offers for US marijuana stocks. And because of that, a lot of the people who probably would invest into the US market are instead investing in the Canadian market. So that kind of leads the Canadian market a little bit inflated compared to the US market. I'm not saying that US stocks are as risky as Canadian stocks, they are more risky, but I think that people still overestimate the risk of some of the US stocks. So the reason why this is important is because in the next few months, we're finally going to be hitting that period where if these stocks were to bottom out somewhere, it would probably be over the next few months. And I think that if you were looking to invest into these stocks, then would be a good time. So if you were to buy these stocks right now, it wouldn't be a very bad time to do so, but you wouldn't really have a lot of upside in buying them. You would probably be better off waiting a few months, and if you waited a few more months, you wouldn't particularly lose out on a lot. Like these stocks should not go up a significant amount in the next few months. They might even go down. So if you wait a few more months, you're not necessarily risking anything significant, and then you can buy them in a few months when they kind of bottom out and when everything is a little bit more stable. They should start going up again probably by the end of the year. As some of the California stuff gets finalized, it should be interesting to see the effect that it's going to have on some of these US stocks. But a lot of them have fallen about 50% over the past over the past half a year or so. And I mean, if you were to buy these stocks a few months from now, then you would be getting a stock that would be significantly discounted from what it was a year ago, and you would also be getting a company that is significantly ahead from where it was a year ago. So it would be a fairly good value. Now, these stocks are significantly risky, by the way. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of risks to these companies, and most of them are probably going to fail. So don't just buy into them randomly, but if you buy into them strategically, if you do your research, if you wait around, watch the companies for quite a while, see what they do, and if the companies have decent management and they consistently do what they claim to do, hit their deadlines and stuff like that, you might want to invest into them. Some of these companies are now getting into reasonable price ranges. Like you're not paying $100 million for a company that's not really even started yet. A lot of these companies are a little bit more reasonable, and if they fall a little bit more, then that would be a point where you could actually invest into them, and your downside would be less than it would be if you were investing into them earlier. So I think that U.S. marijuana stocks, if you're going to look at U.S. marijuana stocks, if you're going to look at the companies that are going to be successful in the U.S. market versus the companies that are going to be successful in the Canadian market, and if you take a look at these companies a few years from now, once we know which companies are going to be successful, I think that the US companies will give you a significantly higher return. Now, finding these companies is difficult, but it's something worth considering. So if you have a high risk tolerance and you're interested in this sort of stuff, then I think that it's definitely worth keeping an eye out, because especially if Trump says something, like if Trump says something remotely related to marijuana, and if the media twists it into something that it's not and the stocks crash a little bit, you might be able to get some of these stocks for a significant discount and make some quick money. So keep an eye out on them. If Trump says something negative, if somebody in politics says something negative, you might be able to get them at a nice discount when they've fallen already. So if Trump would say something negative now, they would probably fall another 20% or so. And if they did that, then you could actually get them at quite a nice discount. It would actually be a decent price to pay for these companies. I don't have any specific companies. These are just some random ones that I pulled up, the ones that I'm familiar with. By the way, don't invest into Mass Fruits. Terrible company in my opinion. That's a story for another time. But anyways, hopefully this is helpful. Hopefully it gives you a better idea of where things are in the US market. And yeah, that's it.